group, and sometimes you don't network unless you're forced to. So I hope that was useful for all of you. I'd like to introduce, if I may, Nazir Afzal, OPE. Both Jav and Nazir was supposed to send me a little CV so I could tell you all about him. But seeing as he's sitting to my left, he's a good friend of mine. And all I can tell you about him is, well, I'll start with he's the Chief Crown Prosecutor for the North West. He moved up from London about 2 years, was it last year? 15 months ago. He's involved in all the high-profile prosecutions in Manchester and in the area around there. He has got an OBE. He doesn't like wearing a tie, and that's the stuff he can tell himself. So please give a warm welcome to Nazir Afzal.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'm delighted to be here, and Idris is doing my convincing. That's how well he knows me. He doesn't know that yet, but he is. Obviously, I feel very honoured to be in your company. Javed invited me some weeks ago, and he and I met about a year ago when I was speaking about the university at a leadership event. And it struck me that I haven't been to Baghdad since then, apart from one meal, I think in Imran's or somewhere. So I thought this is a great opportunity to come and say hello to you, to talk to you about some of the issues that undoubtedly you're challenging or I'm being challenged by, and also maybe perhaps some of the learning that I picked up. And some of you may have seen me on News at 10 last night. Usually when you see an Asian face on News at 10, he's done something really nasty. And so you'll be pleased to learn I didn't do anything nasty, but I did charge somebody who has, allegedly. And in my 15 months up here in the north, I am a Birmingham boy actually. My book would be From Birmingham to Nowhere. I was born in Birmingham, just like your uncle. I lived in, my family, you probably know, just like most of you, came from Pakistan, 1961. Immigrants, born of immigrants. People who came here, my father and mother came here because they wanted to give me opportunities. All the opportunities they thought I wouldn't get in Peshawar or the NWFP, and they were probably right, but I wouldn't have got those opportunities. But I was very fortunate to be able to study here. I think there's usually this line, isn't there, about being the first person in your family to go to university. I think I was the first person in my family to go to school, and that in itself is an achievement, I think. But some of you remember what it was like in the 60s and the 70s, and the amount of racism that we experienced. It's bad enough now, but those of you who lived through the 60s and 70s remember what kind of existence we had then. And I remember just because of the colour of your skin, it wasn't about your faith. They didn't understand our faith. They still don't, but they didn't understand it then. And I think the point was that because you looked different, you were treated very differently. And I remember being bullied and harassed and beaten on one occasion. Many occasions I would stand up to my bullies and say, sticks and stones may break my bones, but your words will not hurt me. And it worked, because after that it was only ever sticks and stones. And I got through school. I was very fortunate to find that I was quite bright, and I had the opportunity. My family decided that they would let me study, keep me away from the workforce as possible. My father was earning nothing, we were very little, looking after a family of 7. But the point is that he wanted to ensure that I had the opportunities, and everybody else would study work around me. And I went to university in Birmingham. Anybody else been to university in Birmingham? Nobody. And I was, I was very fortunate. But that was when I realised actually that I had a bit of a talent. And one of my talents was to show off. And I remember I was a full-time student officer in University of Birmingham. I was the first Asian full-time student officer they ever had. But I didn't think about the fact of my background. I just thought, I want to do this. I want to be able to speak to people publicly. I want to be able to help them in any way, shape, or form. And I remember the very first speech I made. I stood on a table like this one. It was the hustings, for the election. And I kid you not, the table was shaking all the way through my speech, to the point where everybody in the audience was more worried about my health than listening to what I had to say. Are you worried about my health? No. Anyway, so I went to university, I finished my law degree, I went to law school in Guildford. Again, I was probably the only Asian in Guildford at that time. I don't know if you went to Guildford Law School, but pretty much there were very few of us around. But again, I was very fortunate to complete my qualification. I worked in defence, very short space of time, when I went back to Birmingham. And then eventually, back in 91, I decided that I wanted to move to London. And a part of that was to become a prosecutor. And you probably know the prosecution service was very new then. It was 86 it was created, so this was 4 or 5 years in. And it gave me fantastic opportunities. For a decade or so, I was able to work at the centre of London in the most high-profile cases you could probably imagine, involving celebrities, organised crime, Scotland Yard, all the stuff that I could write a book about.
You should. I was in a really good mind.
But I didn't, and I haven't. But the point is that it gave me my grounding. But again, it was one of these things about, if there's any lesson, it's about putting your hand up. Don't be shy. And I remember back in '98, we decided the prosecution should be able to prosecute their own cases in the Crown Court, in-house prosecutors, and I was the first. And back in 2002, when the Queen had her last Jubilee, somebody realised the Queen had never been to a courtroom in the country, in the world actually. And every case is done in her name. It's all Regina versus Queen versus Queen versus. So they decided that they would do a case in front of the Queen. Guess who put his hand up? Yes, there was me, appearing before the Queen, the Duke of Edinburgh, the Lord Chief Justice, the Vice Chancellor, Master of Rolls, 70 High Court judges behind me, and I didn't even think about it until afterwards when I was shaking on the way home. But the point is, you have to push yourself into those kinds of challenging situations in order to improve yourself and perhaps improve the communities that you're part of. And I think that showed me a great deal and taught me a great deal. I moved up the ranks of the service and I became Assistant Chief in London in 2001, and I became Deputy Chief in 2006, and I've been again working on the various high profile cases. Stephen Lawrence, Part 2, my case. Good news, we convicted them, right? And many other cases of a similar nature that you would perhaps I'm sure you'll be aware of. I decided about 2 years ago that I wanted a new challenge. I also wanted a quality of life. And I decided that actually I wanted to leave London. And then the opportunity came up to be, we decided that we wouldn't have a chief for every county, we'd have a chief for the region. I decided then that I would take up the responsibility here in the North West. I didn't know anything about the North West. I had been to Manchester to watch one football match. I had been to Yorkshire to eat a curry. I really had no idea what was going on up here at that time. And I moved in, I decided to live in West Manchester because that's pretty much the motorway network at its best. And I realised that I was next door neighbours to Ryan Giggs. And I realised that Ryan Giggs was currently in public eye because he was sleeping with somebody he shouldn't be. So why were the press outside? They weren't there for me, they were there for him. But it gave me fantastic opportunities. The moment I moved up here, I realised that casework, fantastic casework, is not limited to London. Back in last summer, you probably remember there were 3 householders that killed burglars. You remember? One householder, and about a month later, another, and then a month later, another. And I decided in all 3 cases they shouldn't be prosecuted. And you probably, next Thursday actually, ITV Tonight programme is all about those cases. My point was that you're entitled to defend yourself. The law is clear, even though people were saying the law isn't clear, the law is clear. And I was very pleased to be able to make those decisions. Then of course we had the disorder, and you call it riots, I call it disorder, in Manchester and Salford and Liverpool. And again, we dealt with them extremely swiftly, we made sure that people were prosecuted very quickly, and it sent out a very strong, reassuring message to the public. Then I dealt with the murder of, obviously I deal with 100,000 cases a year, so I'm just dealing with some high profile cases for you. Then I dealt with the murder of Anuj Bidve, the Indian student that was shot dead in Manchester by Kieran Staples. You remember the case very vividly. And I tell you, I'm not joking here, I cried when I met the family of Anuj Bidve. They were the most dignified people. I would not want to meet them in the circumstances that I met them a week after their son had died. They sent their son here to study, to give them everything. They came back, they came here to collect his body. There's nothing on earth that could possibly prepare you for that. But their dignity kept me going, and we made sure that they had the outcome they deserved, the conviction and the life sentence that he obtained about a month or 2 ago. All the while, through all this period, there was a case going on that was having an impact that nobody knew about. That was the Rochdale grooming case. And you recall, maybe 3 years ago, a decision was taken by the previous prosecution team of police that they would not prosecute this gang for what they were doing. When I arrived in Greater Manchester a year ago, I decided to overturn that decision and to prosecute them. And in May of this year, they were convicted. They were all convicted of the grooming of young white girls for sexual gratification. It was a massive case which required a fantastic piece of prosecution work on behalf of my advocates, the people who prepared the cases, etc., etc. It was my responsibility to be the public face of all of that. And so in May, you probably saw a great deal of newspaper articles and editorials, and the government decided they need to change the care system and they need to change the way people are sent around the country, etc., etc. All of that flowed from that case. But what may not be known to you is the amount of abuse that I received. And it wasn't from the Pakistani or Asian community. I got the abuse from the far right. Even when you think that you've done the right thing, i.e. you prosecuted people because they've committed nasty criminal offences and they happen to be Asian, you will be persecuted. I received death threats. I received, I didn't even bother looking online at the amount of stuff that was happening there. And what they did was quite simple, and it's a very common far-right experience. What they do is they change history. They try to, of course, pretend the Holocaust didn't happen, for example. You know? In my case, a very small version of this, they decided that actually Nazir was the one 3 years ago that didn't prosecute these guys. And they set up a website to say this. They then invited thousands of people to write to my organisation to call for me to be sacked. They then started demonstrating outside my house. They then started demonstrating outside my children's school. Now, the answer is simple. The simple answer is, when you deal with ignorant people, ignore them. And that's a very strong message, and it's a message I would actually pass on to people who are demonstrating today around the world around dodgy videos, stupid videos that are being prepared by stupid people. You know? But if you talk to them, or you show that you are hurt by what they have done, they will keep hurting you. The simple answer is to ignore them, then you will move on to some other target. Now, I think one thing, when I was driving here, I was listening to what's been happening in Pakistan today. And today has been the love of the Prophet Day in Pakistan. The love of the Prophet Day led to 15 people being killed, including police officers, taxi drivers, members of the public. Now, I don't think the Prophet would have enjoyed the love that was shown in Pakistan, or was being shown in Lebanon, or was being shown in various other parts of the country. And what's happening there is a deficit of leadership. What people should be saying is that my faith, your faith, I'm sure, will not be damaged by these stupid, ridiculous videos or these ridiculous cartoons that people are producing. My faith is not damaged. What will damage my faith is when people say nasty things about the fact that we've killed other Muslims. That kind of thing damages our faith. If we ignore them, they will go away. The other thing we should be doing is building our own narrative. Well, in all the publicity around what's happening with these videos or the cartoons or everything else has been going on in various years, what we haven't done is we haven't publicly been saying how much we love being Muslims, how much we love our faith, what our faith means to us, what the Prophet means to us. We don't do any of that. We're simply we're so anti what they're doing, rather than positive, being proactive and talking about the things that really matter to us. We aren't. We should be doing that. This is something the Jewish community has done really, really well over the last 100 years or so. Building a very strong narrative about what it means to be Jewish. We don't do any of that. We can learn so much from the Jewish community. That's why they succeed so much in business. They stand up for each other, for example. They support each other. You know, when we climb up a ladder, we take the ladder with us. Huh? Well, in fact, we should be actually supporting each other. I'm so pleased that Billy's here from Mosaic. I'm chair of Mosaic in Northwest. Mosaic goes into schools and provides role models to young people, shows them that there is no ceiling, but there are plenty of opportunities. And that's what Mosaic does, and there are other organizations of a similar nature, where you can go out and talk to people and give young people the opportunities that perhaps we didn't have. The next generation of Muslims, Pakistanis, Britons, should be stronger than this generation, should be better than this generation. And that can only happen if you give something back. If you demonstrate that you can make a difference to people's lives in a way that we perhaps never had that. I don't think I had a mentor other than my family. I don't think anybody, I was a loner. You know, maybe somebody these days would call me a nerd. Yeah? Because I didn't know. We didn't have online. I read books. You know, I haven't read a book for ages actually. I'll read yours later. You know, we now it's so easy for them. It's all online. It's all on websites. It's all being click on a button. You can find out everything you need to know about pretty much everything. The sad thing is, through Twitter and Facebook, I can find out everything I need to know about you because you just tell me. But it's all out there. So there's no excuse in you not building up your knowledge. And doesn't our faith say that to get close to God, build up your knowledge, educate? That's what gives you your strength, and that's what we can do about ensuring that people realise that we're no threat to them. What they're scared of is that 1.5 billion people in this world are Muslims. But we're not all the same. I have no intention. I was on a train on 7/7 in central London. I could have been one of those victims. I just say the same thing. You know, I'm going to New York in 7 days. You know, people are saying to me, "Oh my God, they're going to treat you." No, they're not. There are plenty of Muslims in New York, plenty of Muslims in Virginia or in parts of the United States. We are everywhere, but we work hard. That's, I think, our nature. I hate the word integrate. We don't integrate. Neither should we assimilate. We contribute. My view is that we should contribute as we do to society more than we ever did. At the moment, Muslims in this country contribute about 30 billion to GDP. 30 billion pounds. That insolvency practitioner, you're out of a job. You know, we are contributing so much to the society that we're part of. Our children are growing, you know. Our children are so much part of this organisation. And so much part of it. My children wouldn't even think about their heritage. They think their heritage is that they're British, they're Pakistani, and they're Muslim. There's no tension. There is no tension between all of those things, because you do not love your first child any less when you have a second. You can love them all. You can be all of them. And you know, people want you to pick. They want you to select a route and say, well, that's what you are. No, you are a lot more than that. There's more to you than that meets the eye. What we do lack, though, I've got a face I made, I think. Is that my time? What we do lack is leadership. I go back to my point. Leadership, unfortunately, I engage with leaders up and down the country, Muslim leaders up and down the country. Next week, I'm suddenly becoming the Pakistan power list. I'm one of the 100 most powerful Pakistanis in the world, apparently. My children are far more powerful than I could ever be. You know? The point is that we lack leadership. What we rely upon are, no disrespect, because I'm old myself, we rely upon old men, we rely upon middle class, wealthy men, we rely upon people who come from the kind of backgrounds that unfortunately our leaders come from. We don't have many women. I'm so pleased to see so many women here. We need our leaders to be women. We need our leaders to be young. We need our leaders to come from normal, low-income, normal households. At the moment they don't. But most Muslims in this country are under 25. Most Muslims in this country are women. Most Muslims in this country come from low-income households. So the people that represent them should be people that come from those backgrounds, not the people that unfortunately I have to deal with on a regular basis who don't come from those backgrounds. And so many times I have spent sitting in meetings, wherever they may be, I won't comment on wherever they may be, and I spend half an hour in their company. I think I have wasted half an hour of my life. Because you don't represent anybody. Your views mean nothing to me, and nobody out there actually knows you're even here. But it gives you status. It makes you think, I've met the chief prosecutor. I can go and tell you. I've seen them on their website say, I've met the chief prosecutor today. As if it somehow gives them some kudos. I'm nobody. I would rather they did something with their time and with their money. You know? We have such potential. We have the opportunity to change the world for the better. As we already do change the world, but even more so. We need to ensure that the leaders in this room, every single one of you, shy or not, well or not, every single one of you makes that contribution, makes that jump, makes sure that the next generation is able to develop faster than we've been able to develop. I really do think that we've got to ensure that we stop being victims. I wouldn't say this outside, I'll say it here. We should stop being victims. One day a year we should remember the people that we've lost. We should remember the times that the people. Why are we not demonstrating today because the Muslims in Burma are being pushed out of Burma? Why are we not doing that? Why are we demonstrating that cartoon in the video? We should be focusing on the issues that really matter to our communities, real communities, the people who are fighting life and death for their survival and their existence. But they're not able to do so because we're focusing on stupid cartoons. Alright, how can we make a cartoon of our prophet when there is no picture of our prophet? It's all in our minds. We simply assume that they're out to hurt us, and they are out to hurt you. Don't let them hurt you. We have problems. 1 in 8 of our prison population in this country is Muslim. Did you know that? 11,000 Muslims are in prison today. No, it's not because they're terrorists. There are 250 in prison for terrorism offences. So nearly 11,000 are in prison for other offences. And what do you reckon the most common? Drugs. Drugs. A generation is being lost to addiction, to dealing, to supplying, to industrial work in this field. That's a problem that we need to talk about. And when I try and talk about it with communities, our community, we go quiet. We don't want people to know that we're all in prison. As if somehow they don't. Yeah, we've got a situation, I don't know what the population of Bradford is, Javid, but I'm thinking that we're pretty much at a stage where half of our population now is Muslim or Pakistani, yeah?
Not half, no.
Maybe not. But I can point to the number of prisons in this country that are more than half Muslim. We're already there, in prison. That's terrible. So where's our dialogue? Where's our discussion about what we're going to do? I'm glad to see us with you about the probation service, about preventing people from offending, about preventing young people from getting into those situations. When I was driving here, I was seeing boys standing on the corner of the street, and I jumped to conclusions about what they were up to. Was I jumping to conclusions? Are we doing something about it? Do we wait for the government to tell us what to do about it, or the authorities? When in fact, you and I can do something about it? We can encourage them, we can support them, we can get them off drugs, we can ensure they don't network with those kinds of people. Look, they need our help, and we need to help them. And if we don't help them, unfortunately, people are going to die. And people will constantly think of us as victims. Constantly think of us as the poor brothers and sisters of society. When in fact, you know and I know how powerful we are as a group, because we look after the society we're part of. I'm British, you're British. I'm Muslim, you're Muslim. There is nothing between us. There's no reason why we can't be all of those things. Finally, really, I look at my child, my youngest child is a Manchester United fan. And when he came up to Manchester, he's born in London, came to Manchester and he said, I fear I'm coming home, Dad. He's never been to Manchester in his life. I fear I'm coming home. Then when he discovered that half the Manchester United football team were our neighbours, he thought, he has arrived. Right? And very recently he met Nanny for the first time. Not a very good footballer, I have to say. But he met Nanny for the first time, and he thought, this is great, this is paradise, this is heaven. I said to him, no, it's not heaven. It's not heaven, I'll show you what heaven is. And I tried to explain to him that what you have in this world is nothing compared to what you could have. If you behave yourself, if you do all the right things, you can make a difference in people's lives. And I ask the same of you. You please don't look for another leader, you are the leaders. And please always remember that you can make a difference. When somebody says to me, when I talk about women's rights, I talk about violence against women all the time, I'm the national lead on these subjects. I talk about these subjects, I say, we are doing ourselves a tremendous disservice as a community. Never mind the human rights element, never mind the fact that we're damaging women day in, day out. Look at what we're doing to our communities if we're making sure that half our community can't even work, can't even study, can't even develop and grow. The moment they're ready to study or ready to work, we marry them off. You know? We are doing ourselves a tremendous disservice by doing all those things. What we need to focus on is that we have strength in each other, in supporting each other. Don't put yourselves down. Please don't put yourselves down. Put me down as much as you like. I am used to it. The evil love me. No, they don't. The point is that we need to support each other, and you will have my support in everything that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.